Looking at the Missouri Valley Conference, Rocco, no odds out for this conference tournament just yet. But if you look at how and by the way, I've said this a lot, but you should follow Rocco on Twitter at RoccoMiller8 because he is the full tournament breakdown in terms of the seeding, tweeting it out consistently throughout the weekend and as the days move along here, heading into the high major conference tournaments. But Bradley earning the number 1 overall seed in the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament, or otherwise known as Arch Madness. Then you have Drake, Southern Illinois, Belmont rounding out the top 4. I'm intrigued by the number 3 seed SIU, but I want to hear your take on any potential dart throws. I know we don't have odds, or if you like one of the favorites.
Yeah, I mean, I did a breakdown like I do on all the tournaments, and I think, if you want to get really crazy, the team to really pay attention to is Valparaiso at number 10 seed, mainly because they've been playing super well and just not getting over the hump. Just lost again in overtime on the last day to Murray State, but playing really, really tough. Ben Krikke arguably has been, maybe you can't put him above Tucker DeVries but he might be the second best player in the league right now. Ben Shepard's an excellent player at Belmont, and there's a bunch of other names you could throw out there. But I just think Valpo's being slept on. I think even though they're losing close, they're now entering an event with nothing to lose, and they get to play Murray State right away again and avenge that loss. I think they'll do that. Not that impressed with Murray State unless they're at home. Murray State, for their argument, they do have an amazing fan base, so they could pack St. Louis. Maybe that's enough to carry them late. But just for a super long shot, Valpo's the team, I would say. And then I think when we get down to the last 4 teams, Eli, we're going to be looking at Bradley will find a way there, in my opinion. I actually think Illinois State knocks off Northern Iowa in the opener, and then just too much firepower there for Bradley to lose to Illinois State. So Bradley gets there, and then I have them taking on Indiana State, the Sycamores, the team that started 6-0. Then they were 6-6 in the league. Now they're back to playing quite a bit better, actually. A tough close to the season with a loss to Missouri State at home on Senior Day. A little surprising. But the thing that the Sycamores do, and I saw them in person against Drake, is they come at you in waves, and that's Josh Schertz's goal. So they're built for an event like this. They're built to win every day. They could go with a different starting 5 every single game. They could give certain guys 30 minutes a game, and then the next night give them 20 based on the matchup. They're built to be versatile matchup wise. So they're probably the most dangerous team because of that. Now again, their play has been inconsistent to the point where it's hard to trust them. But you've seen them string 6 wins in a row together. You could see them stringing 3 wins in a row together here in Arch Madness. So I do think they beat Belmont in Belmont's first go-around here in Arch Madness. And then Drake, I do have getting there as well, and ultimately knocking off that Valpo team. But Valpo gave Drake so many fits in both games this year, and Valpo's actually playing better now. And that's why I say take a serious look at Valpo. And then I'm with you on SIU at least getting to the semifinal round. I like their matchup a lot against Missouri State, assuming that's who they play. There are really no concerns there of them getting through that game. So that gets us to the semis. Then you break down the semifinals. Bradley, Indiana State could be a real slugfest offensively. One thing that people don't talk about enough is Bradley's got a real top-notch D of late, and I think that's enough to get the Braves to the championship game. And Brian Wardle's won this event twice as a head coach. I think that's a really important fact because I don't think there's another coach in the entire league that's won it since Loyola left the league. DeVries over at Drake, he's got to the championship twice and fell short. So that's a storyline to keep in mind as well. You get to the second semifinal with Drake and SIU. I think Drake really manhandled SIU twice, so it's tough for me to pick SIU to beat them. So as long as Drake gets there and it's not Valpo, I got to go with Drake. And that gets us back to another Drake-Bradley showdown, and it's a rematch of the 2020 title game that ended up not getting a team to the tournament, but Bradley won that game, and then we had coronavirus a couple days later. This will be revenge time for a guy like Roman Penn and DJ Wilkins, who both started that day, and they're still at Drake. So I'm going with the revenge factor in the title, Drake over Bradley. It'll be a heck of a game. It's going to be an amazing tournament. Even on Thursday, there'll be 4 great games. You just can't miss it. It's one of the best.
Man, take a sip of water. Take a breath. That was awesome, man. This is my favorite. I think, I want to get your quick take, and then I'll go into SIU. Is this your favorite conference tournament, at least for week 1? Just me being in the Midwest, I love it.
Oh, for week 1, 100%, no question. Not even an argument. I think the top 2 in the country are very clear to me. It's the Big East tournament and it's Arch Madness. I don't think any of the other 30 come close, even though a lot of them are great. Those 2 are just different, and the atmosphere and everything that goes along with that tournament on both ends is a whole different level, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And you mentioned a couple of things, a lot of great insight as always. Brian Wardle. I had a bet on Bradley. I think I did a money line rollover on the Braves, so I had a decent amount riding on Bradley to beat Northern Iowa. I think it was in the 2019 MVC title game, and they overcame an 18-point second-half deficit, one of the best comebacks I've seen, especially from a betting standpoint. Bettors always say they remember the losses more so than the wins, but I remember that win vividly because that was a heck of a comeback. But you also mentioned Bradley against Illinois State potentially in the first round. And one important note for those second round games, so the quarterfinals on Friday, usually the first round games in Arch Madness tip off at night. But a lot of these games, especially Illinois State, let's say the Redbirds get to the quarterfinals, that Thursday game tips off on, I think, Thursday at noon. So they're going to have a full 24 hours to prep for the first round matchup, or the second round matchup, I should say, in the quarterfinals against Bradley versus what it's been like in the past. So you mentioned that in terms of not only dissecting matchups, but dissecting rest time and all that. Definitely important to note. Yep. But the team that I mentioned, and you said you like SIU, I'm completely with you on the fact that I think Valpo can give Drake some fits, especially when you go back to those first 2 matchups. I know Valpo didn't pull off the upset, but like you said, they're playing pretty good ball of late. So the team I'm looking at, like I already prefaced, is SIU. You said Bradley has the only coach to win a recent Arch Madness championship. Mullins was on those Loyola Chicago staffs. Yeah. So One of the best defensive coaches to me, not only in Arch Madness and across college basketball, really. So that's I love him from a prep standpoint too, not having rest in between and coaches not being able to dissect his defensive game plan because of what he throws at you, throwing a ton of ball pressure. SIU generates the highest opponent's turnover rate in Missouri Valley Conference play. Now, the question is, because we saw this come into play last year when SIU took on Drake in that second round matchup, so in the quarterfinals, SIU shot like crap pretty much in that game. So this team relies on the three-point line pretty much more so than anyone in conference play. Lance Jones is going to be the key there because he's shooting around 27, 28%, but I think around 40% of his shots are, or actually it might be up to 60% of his shots from just overall are from deep. So his efficiency, and obviously the rest of those guys, Xavier Johnson for SIU has a pretty good three-point efficiency. The other Xavier Johnson in college basketball, not Indiana Xavier Johnson. So if SIU could face a team like Valpo in the semifinal, if Valpo could upset Drake, that's why I'm very much more intrigued about SIU just because of the path and from a price standpoint rather than rolling along the money line. So money line rollover. And then SIU Bradley did get the best of SIU in both of their meetings, but it took a 4-point play in their last matchup to get the job done. SIU was pretty much I don't want to say pretty much, but they were up by 2 with about 20, 30 seconds left in that game. So very high on the Salukis. I'll have a full write-up of the Missouri Valley Conference tournament at thelines.com. But Rocco, any closing thoughts on the MVC or my SIU takes before we get to the SoCon here really quick?
I like them. I think at many points of the year, I would have had SIU and all my preseason work as well. All my preseason work is designed to have a regular season championship prediction and a conference tournament championship prediction because it is 2 different seasons. I had Drake as my regular season champion preseason. I had SIU winning the event for a lot of the same reasons you said. I'm a defense first oriented thinker, and I see defense win a lot of these types of tournaments. To see Bradley outperforming SIU had to make me shift gears a little bit. And then, of course, looking at those two head-to-head matchups with Drake, where it just got actually SIU did beat them by 4 at home in a very low-scoring game, 53-49. But getting blown out more recently, and SIU maybe not performing as well down the stretch. Having to really inch one out at UIC in the final on the final day in the last minute just gave me some hesitation on the Salukis. But overall, I definitely agree with your sentiment. And you know how it is when you get to St. Louis. You got a clean slate. You start fresh, baby. So, a lot of things can change between now and then.
Yeah, and you mentioned that low-scoring game between SIU and Drake. Not only are unders a thing to pay attention to in this Arch Madness, but if SIU can play at their pace, because they really want to slow it down.
Yes.
Bottom 30, bottom 35 in tempo across college basketball. So that's the way Mullins wants to play, and I think SIU, we don't have the odds yet, so haven't pulled the trigger, but very curious to see what SIU opens up at.